Hello everybody and welcome back to VFR. Today we are back in the DC-6 and we are beginning what I am tentatively calling our DC-6 campaign. Now, you're probably wondering, or probably saying to yourself, well, Microsoft Flight Simulator doesn't have a campaign. And you are right, it doesn't. So, what we are doing is doing a little bit of the work for ourselves. I have basically just created a little spreadsheet program with a couple macros. And that's going to tell us where we're flying. It's going to give us some assignments, and we're going to follow them. It's going to give us, and this is something that you'll be able to follow along with your own if you want to. You can also customize, modify it to do whatever you want, wherever you want. It's very simple, and it's all in Google Sheets. So I will make a full video about how we're doing that here in the near future, and how you can do it for yourself. But for today, we are getting it started with a quick flight in our DC-6. From Shannon International Airport in Ireland over to RAF Mildenhall in Eastern England. So let's hop up into the cockpit and we will, I'll pull up the route and we will get started. Alright, so welcome back aboard our trusty DC-6. And if I pull up my window, we should see our pilot's logbook. So this is the campaign system that we're going to be using. We are going to be flying basically as part of the Military Air Transport Service, which was an American joint command basically during the early Cold War, so the late 1940s, I think it was stood up, and then through the 50s and early 60s. This was the group that basically organized military transportation for both using U.S. Air Force and U.S. Navy planes. So it was kind of a joint work. And we're going to be doing a lot of flights that I think are representative of journeys that may have been used in Europe. So if you see here, this is basically the program, if you want to call it. It's just a Google Sheet. And we have our missions here. This is going to populate as we complete missions. So once we're done, not to get too deep in, but we're going to click Get Mission, and it's going to come up with our next assignment. And again, I'll go over this all in a separate video if you want to follow along. But today, we're going to be departing Shannon International Airport, where we have just arrived, saying we've flown commercial over here in maybe another DC-6 from the States here to Shannon. And we are basically taking command of this DC-6, and we're going to be piling a bunch of other people who are coming to Mildenhall with us in the back to join what I'm calling our Special Action Group. We're going to be just doing random things across Europe. And we're going to relieve the current crew here and fly on back to Mildenhall, which will take us over just about all of Southern Ireland, Wales, and England. Now, you'll see here we have departures. I've set it up so we can have up to 3 separate legs, but most of them are going to be out and back, so they'll have 2 distinct legs. We have a departure time and conditions. Now, we're going to use these conditions or live weather, whichever I want to do better, but sometimes live weather, especially over the UK, can be kind of nasty, low clouds, and a lot of these military bases don't have, either they don't have an ILS, they'll just have TACANs, or those ILSs aren't programmed into Microsoft Flight Simulator, so our mileage may vary on how much of the actual instrument approaches we can use. So, when in doubt, we're going to go with the conditions listed here. But then it's also going to have a description of what we're actually doing and the cargo, and then our pilot's log over here, this is what we're going to be filling out as we do it. And again, very simple, but it's just going to give us a little bit more structure to fly across Europe in the same plane. So that's also going to be nice. We're going to get to know this airframe, and we're going to have to conserve our engines and things like that as well. Now, if we jump back out of this, our route is... I've actually used a little nav map for this one. I've never used little nav map before. It seems quite powerful compared to, I usually just plug in a Sky Vector, but it's going to do a lot of the same things. This probably has more features. But we're basically going to depart out of Shannon, and we're going to pick up the Shannon VOR here, SHA. We're going to fly outbound at 109 for about 150 miles, and then we're going to pick up I believe the Strumble VOR here. And then we're going to make a left turn and fly across Wales until we hit... Ooh, I don't remember what this one is. Until we hit the Daventry VOR here, which will keep us neatly south of the Birmingham international airspace there. And then we're going to make one last left turn. We're going to descend a little bit before then, actually, and come into RAF Mildenhall. Now, Little Nav Map does have an ILS frequency here, but I did not find it in Microsoft Flight Simulator, so we will see. And at Mildenhall, I just have a little custom scenery to set up to welcome us into there. So that's the route. We're going to go ahead and start our setup. All right, so we're going to have the AFE and the first officer take care of the before start checklists, because I don't feel like hitting all those switches right now, and we're going to go ahead and get the nav aid set up. Now, if they haven't turned the radios on, you just rotate these up. We have our ADF here. So,
completed.
I need to figure out what we're looking for.
Tasted.
Shannon is going to be on 113.3.
Fuel and fluids. Checked. Pressurization.
And Strumble's 113.1, I believe.
Manifold and duct pressure. Checked. Radios.
Where Strumble's 113.1. We'll tune that in here too.
Checked. Doors and hatches.
And then I'm going to go put Daventry in that one on nav 2. Daventry's going to be 116.4.
Closed.
Okay. So that's all set up.
Warning lights.
The other thing we can do is try and pick up the Shannon ATIS.
Removed. 3 on board.
But I've tried this before. I can't tune it in on this radio, but if I click it here, I can.
Throttles.
Shannon Airport information Golf 05000.
Set to idle.
Line 229er at 20. Visibility
Forward
9er.
and 3.
Sky condition. Few clouds at 1,700 feet, 6,400 feet
Before
scattered.
start checks complete.
Temperature
Start
15.
engines.
Dew point 13. Altimeter 29er decimal 9er 2. ILS runway 24 in use. Landing and departing runway 24.
Alright, so we have information golf. And we're going to take off on runway 24, which is going to be out and to our left, I believe. And we are ready to start engines. So we have all that programmed in. And let's go ahead and get our engines started up. So I'm going to be using my realistic start procedure because that's what I know. So magnetos going to both. Boost pumps to low. Engine start selector 3. And we're going to check and make sure we have fuel pressure, and we do. Let's go ahead and start.
3.
I didn't think about that. We'll try it. See if that catches. No, I forgot you can't hear them in external view. Alright, well, we'll shut that back down. And give it another try. Okay, we've got the callouts.
6. 9. 12.
Prime. And mixture to rich. And we've got life. Okay, good. And the throttle's looking okay. I knew there was a reason I didn't go to external views when they were doing that, and that's why. Alright, engine 4. Magnetos to both. Boost pump to low. Engine selector to 4. We're going to check and make sure we have fuel pressure. We do. And we'll start.
3. 6. 9. 12.
Boost prime. Mixture. Rich. Is that a needle I saw? No. Alright, so we're back to the beginning. Go to cutoff. All these switches are good. We'll wait for it to come back in. But engine 4 is not spinning. A little late on that one, I got distracted. Start.
3.
boost, prime, we got auto rich, and that's looking much better. All right. Ooh, we lost it again. See, that just went to 30, RPMs down to 0. And we're on realistic engine start now, so I'm going to give it one more try, and then we're going to have to go to the manual. Boost, prime, down, auto rich. Hopefully it catches. And we are stabilizing. It's a little lower than engine 3, but that's okay. Alright, we have engine 4. This is a little dramatic. Alright, now engine 2, magnetos to both. Fuel pump to low, engine selector to 2. And check fuel pressure. We have fuel pressure. Oil pressure is rising on the other 2 engines, so that's good. Alright, let's give it a shot.
3, 6, 9, 12.
Boost, prime, mixture, rich. We've got life on engine 2. And we've got oil pressure, we do. And up to the top one more time. Both. Fuel pumps to low. Engine selector to 1. Wait for those switches to come in. Got 3 engines going.
3, 6, 9, 12.
Boost prime, auto rich, back to check. Alright, and there we are. Engine 1 is settling in. We've got rising oil pressure. We're looking okay. Alright, that's 4 engines started. Alright, now after start, we're going to go boost pumps to low, or to off, I should say. And selector off, magnetos on both. I'm going to put our position lights on. And that is all set. We're going to go over to plane battery, and we're going to remove the ground power. I'm going to close my window before I forget. And I have to get my checklist out because I didn't have it ready to go. Boost pumps off, start selector off, battery, plane battery, inverters and generators, they were checked, on and on. We've got emergency lights armed. Before taxi, our exterior lights are on. We're going to go down to auto lean here. I do need to set up my weight and balance. I need to add a line for that earlier on. But we'll say they just finished loading. So fuel and load, I'm going to give us a bit of fuel, about 3,000 in each tank, the main tanks. And then I'm going to keep the amount in the alt tanks, and we're just going to keep running like that. Just to practice some fuel management and just get used to switching between the main and alt tanks. We're going to try and switch to them once we get up and finish the takeoff and when we start climbing out. Now, cargo. Our campaign tells us we need 8,000 pounds in the main hold and 1,000 in the lower. So we're not going to be heavily loaded. I wonder how you get... I guess this is finer. So we would scroll up on that wheel to get to 1,000. And then we're looking for 8,000 here. And this is basically simulating 40 or so airmen strapped into the back here. Obviously this is the cargo variant, but the idea is that we're actually transporting people today. Nothing but the finest accommodations for them. Okay, so that's all set up. flight plan. We got our flight plan all set up. Our radios are set up as we need them. Nav aids are set. Our engines are... Do a quick scan. Engine 3 has pretty... That oil pressure's pretty low. But... It's okay. And we'll keep an eye on that. And if we go to the engine stress visualizer, it's going to show us that as well. Now, you set taxi clearance. We're the only humans here, so I give us clearance. Just give it a look around. Area looks clear. We're basically going to push back straight to the left, and I'm going to use the reversers. We'll put it into reverse mode, parking brake off, and we're going to go ahead and back up. Do it through harmonic zone, just a little bit. I'm just going to nudge it back. We got the wheel chock bug still. Give it a little bit more. So we're pretty lightly loaded, so it's just kind of taking off backwards, and that's okay. It's just something I want to manage. Which is why I'm not staying on the power all that much. We'll give it a little bit forward just to cancel it out. Alright, we are ready to taxi. And we'll keep an eye on those oil temperatures and oil pressures. We're going to say that the run-up has been completed earlier. They actually flew it in today, so we don't have to do that. Windows and doors. My windows and doors are closed and locked. I did have a test I wanted to do just to see if this actually works. It does not, so you can't do that. There may be a lock, I don't know, but... Okay. We're going to go ahead and start taxiing out, and then we'll set up the cowl flaps and everything else, and just keep an eye on these engines. We're not running very much. Try and squeak by the goose over here. Alright, other thing. Cowl flaps are going to be going down to... I'm going to put them here. That's where I see the AFE put them. So I'm assuming that's for, not where I was putting them, but we'll see. And then, landing lights come on. Checklist. Flaps are going to go 20 degrees down, so that's 3 knocks. And we're going to go ahead and throw the boost pumps onto low. Right, we are taxiing here around Shannon. It's not as busy probably as it once was, but this used to be a big place where transatlantic flights would come in, including the DC-6. Now, MATs probably didn't come in here a ton. They would go mostly in through Norway or through Iceland, and then via Prestwick, Scotland was the published routes, and then into England. Or they also had routes going around the Azores. The south. We'll go all the way down, actually. But Shannon, fun fact, was where the Irish coffee was invented. And I do like good Irish coffee, so that was fun. It was invented to welcome travelers from overseas into Ireland. we're going to come out left, and then we're basically going to try and get it so that we're basically looking like this. We're basically going to try and head this direction, or about the opposite actually. So we're just going to move to slowly, gently intercept the radial outbound, and then about halfway through, so once we're ticking up to about 60, 70 miles, we will start thinking about transitioning over to the Strumble VOR when we get in there. So we're going to continue on taxi. And the taxiways are a little confusing because the taxiways look like runways because they were runways once upon a time. Back on track. Now, I did talk a little bit about the campaign we're going to be following, but essentially, we're going to be trotting around Europe. This is not, in any way, shape, or form, a accurate reenactment of flights flown by Mats, simply because a lot of those airfields don't exist anymore, or don't exist in their current form. Even our home base, we're going to have our home base at RAF Mildenhall, which we'll talk a little bit more about once we get up into the cruise. But that really wouldn't have been a big Mats hub, at least for the earlier years. But a lot of American traffic would have gone through RAF Burtonwood, which is now, I believe, underneath a highway interchange. So we're making some compromises there, but we're just going to fly around and see and talk a little bit about kind of U.S. and Cold War military operations in Europe. All right. So we're here, we are set up. Let's just finish up our checklist. We did cow flaps, boost pumps on, gust lock needs to be disengaged. And we'll control our flight controls. Got pitch, got roll. Good to go there. We're going to go mixture, auto rich. All four are in auto rich. And our landing lights are on. Okay, and we are going to be, I believe this is going to be a dry takeoff. It is, 82,000 pounds. We are not that heavily loaded today. So we're going to go ahead and taxi on out. And we'll ask the fellows to run a dry takeoff. Taxiing out to the center line, brakes on. And we are going to run the takeoff dry.
30 inches stabilize. 30 inches stabilize.
And I mean, nothing they're doing here is rocket science. But I actually enjoy kind of flying the plane, really. Focusing on how it's handling and where we're going for this part. 30 inches.
30 inches stabilized. Cowl flaps. Cowl flaps. Cowl flaps set. Full power, please. Going full power.
Here we should go. We should end up around 53 and 53.5, I believe. Make sure we have all four engines.
Full power set.
Full power's been set. We're going to release the parking brake. And again, we're going to rotate at 100. We're going to climb out 130. Go to 140 as we pick up speed. And then we'll be climbing out at 165 once they set climb power. Airspeed's alive. We are passing, that's 80 knots. I'm going to give it a little bit of rudder. 100 knots, just coming back gently on the stick. Put a long roll.
Positive rate, gear up. Gear selected up. Gear up, lights out, flaps up. Flaps going up.
And we're pretty light, so we've got a lot of power right now. So 140, 145 is a little bit aspirational at the moment.
Meter power. Setting meter power, 48 inches, 2600 RPM.
Did they always tell us that? I feel like they didn't. It's good information to have.
Meter power set. Climb power. Setting climb power.
We're just going to get a nice banked turn. As they go back to 40 inches
Climb power set.
and 2400 RPM.
After takeoff checklist, please. After takeoff checks complete.
Alright, we are climbing out here. So yeah, again, I don't mind using the AFE for all that, just because I feel like I still have a lot to master as a pilot in this thing. But it's not, yeah, it's not rocket science what they're doing. They're just setting different power levels. And knowing what they're setting actually is going to help you more on the back end when you're landing and descending than necessarily now. Now it's kind of simple and set in stone. We're now climbing through 3,000 feet. I think we're going to cruise around 1,400 feet today. Should get us above this cloud layer. And all I'm doing is watching the needles on the bottom. The thin one is going to point at the Shannon VOR. But remember, we want to be going away from the Shannon VR. So there's the airport right there. And this is basically putting us kind of perpendicular to our route. It's actually a little bit less than that. Probably gone a little far. So I'm going to come back right. We're basically heading out to our right. Away from the airfield. And so we want that white arrow to be pointing back and to our left. Or the thin white arrow to be pointing back to our left. Just keeping an eye where speed's getting a little high now. So just a little bit more and we'll start thinking about gyropilot. That's 4,500. And that's good. Let's level off. Let's go wings level and gyropod on. Mechanical disconnect. And once we get the needles to come in, we will go ahead to the localizer mode. And we can also double check and make sure that it's showing this arrow in the bottom. That means it's going from. And we've got this set up. We're 6 miles now from Shannon. It's off back to our left. And we're getting a little slow here. Noses come up, so let's just set it up so we're going 165. Down. We're still climbing out respectably. And the needles are starting to come in. Now, of course, we are flying out of Shannon, which is probably a little bit of an anachronism. I doubt they would have let us fly out of Shannon in the real world. Because Ireland wasn't part of NATO. And I don't think they would have taken kindly to it. But I couldn't pass up a chance to visit that historic place. And again, this isn't really about creating a museum-level recreation of U.S. Air Force operations in the 50s and 60s. It's more about sightseeing in Ireland in a cool livery, which is available, by the way, on flightsim.to. We have version 1.0 up now. Fixed a lot of the issues that were bugging me about it. So we're looking good here at 165. And again, we're just going to fly this course till the needles come in. Verify we're on 109. We are. And as a sanity check, we should be flying east, or east-ish. Alright, so we're passing 8,000 feet, about 6,000 to go. I'm going to give it a little bit more left turn just to try and track down this course that we've set. Just a blip. Just double checking now. 2 should already be tuned into our next VOR, the VOR we're going to be flying to. So once that comes in, it should basically align with the narrow white needle. But I don't anticipate we'll pick it up for another 20, 30, 40 miles or so. A little bit about our destination. We're heading out to RAF Mildenhall, which today is home to the 100th Air Refueling Wing of the United States Air Force. KC-135 Stratotankers do a lot of work out of there. It's been one of the airfields that U.S. Air Forces in Europe have been using for a long time. Before that, Strategic Air Command also used it. Like most, this airfield was actually built by the British before World War II. It was built in the 1930s. It actually was inaugurated early so that it could host the start of an air race from Mildenhall down to Melbourne, Australia. So, that's interesting. Long flight, even today. Of course, they didn't do it all in one go, but still very interesting. And throughout it was envisioned as a bomber base for the RAF, and it held bombers, including the Wellington, the Short Sterling, and the Avro Lancaster. It was actually, I believe it was shut down at the end of the war to do some repairs. Well, maybe not. I'm thinking of somewhere else. I've read a lot about RAF air bases in the last couple weeks. But it was also a big point of entry for prisoners of war coming back from Germany after the war. And then in the Cold War, especially prompted by the Korean War, that American forces really built up in Europe. And Mildenhall was made available to U.S. Strategic Air Command, and originally it was operating B-29 Super Fortress out of there. Now, this is all good. This was not a big mat space historically. I'm sure they flew in there, but again, a lot of American personnel coming into England would have come in through RAF Burtonwood, but again, that's a defunct airfield, and I'm not going to go about resurrecting all of the defunct airfields across Europe from the Cold War to fly into. So this is again, this is more in the spirit of what we're doing, not so much the actual true historical value. Although I did replace a bunch of C-17s on the ramp with our DC-6s in our scenery, which we'll see when we get there. So we're climbing now through 13,000, or 12,600 for 13,000. And our speed, we're getting a little low, so I'm going to give us just a little knock of nose down. And we seem to be kind of flying perpendicular to our route, so I'm going to give us a nice hefty turn and try and pull this in. You notice the needle just keeps creeping back closer to center, so we're not quite really intercepting it. So we're going to work a little more aggressively. Speed is good, and it comes back to the left a little bit. I guess it tries to pick up where you hit the button. That's 13,500. Just begin bringing the nose down. To help us get a nice smooth level off is the idea. And the needles are coming in now, so we're going to go over to Localizer Mode. Let the airplane do the thinking on that front for a little bit, while we get ready to hit the altitude control button. And that's 1400. It should hold that. And I'm not shooting for any particular vertical speed there, just trying to get basically under 500 feet per minute. And if you're under that, it'll be fine. It might bounce around a little bit. So we are flying right into the sun. But it is nice here over Ireland. And we're going to let it pick up speed, and then I will ask the guys to run the cruise checklist. And yeah, I will check in with you guys once we are getting a little bit further on and in close to our descent into Mildenhall. Alright, welcome back in. We are coming up on our first waypoint here, which is going to be this rumble VOR. Now, I've already gone over to it. I went over about halfway through. And then we're going to go basically be flying towards the Daventry VOR on 116.4. And we're going to go at a heading of 085. So, you know, we'll go through our normal procedure here. We're about 10 miles out. The VOR is not going to move, so we're going to go ahead and put it into gyro pilot, so we can fiddle with things and get everything set up without it going all nuts. So, our course is going to be 085. I'm just going to come back, and it should be a slight left turn. So we're going to try and pick it up a little bit as we get in close, but yeah, we will see. And then the only other thing I did do was we went over to the aux tanks before we went into the cruise. So we're now burning off of, the alternate tanks, which are the top gauges here, not the bottom gauges. That's got to be before. just watching our distance here, 6 miles, as we, and it should be, and visually we can look outside and see we're about to hit whales. And that's about where the VOR station is, so. It is all lining up right. We're about 5 miles now. And we are flying into a bit of a headwind, so we're only getting 240 knots ground speed. So it is going to take us a little bit longer, but that's what we planned on. And I'm really going to try something different here. Once we start passing, we know we have to turn left, basically. So we're going to try and do this a little bit more efficiently. 3 miles. That's 2.5. And while we're doing this, we can just make a check of our engines. Everything looks okay. We do have oil pressure in the other engine 3, which we were looking at earlier. Go over to engine stress management. We got yellow in the oil temperature, but that's okay. And we're at 2.2 miles. And we're entering the zone of confusion, so it's starting to flip around. We should be about directly overhead, and that is lining up nicely. And we see we now have our from arrow here. So we're going to go ahead and give it a little bit of a left turn. We're going to try. And remember, we're going to be going to a heading 085 or less, so we'll turn a little bit past that. Throw it into Localizer Mode and let the airplane pick it up. And we are back on course. Now the only thing I might be worried about is hitting some tops of some of these clouds. So let's just check our temperatures outside real quick. And we're at like negative 11, 12, 13 or so Celsius. So that's okay, we shouldn't need it, but let's turn it on just in case. We're going to go just turn the windshield de-icing on. Just a little bit. And we'll also turn our prop de-icer on. Shouldn't need it, but just in case. And here we go, we're going feet dry over whales. Now this will probably not be our last trip to Wales. I do want to do the mock loop at some point, which is up in, off to our left a little bit. Hopefully that'll come up as one of our missions. We will see, it's not up to me. And we look down here, we're now 10 miles from Strumble. We're heading over to Daventry, and if we just check, it looks like we've got the next VR too. So yeah, 135 miles. So we'll start thinking about switching over around 70. So that's about it. Now we are going to have to start our descent before the next VR. So let's talk through that a little bit. To do that, I'm going to pull up a little nav map. All right, so we've got a little nav map. Now, we are here. You can actually see it on the moving map. And we are flying inbound to Daventry. Now, it's calculated our top descent at 67 nautical miles from the beginning of the ILS, which is out here at Osgog. Again, we'll see if we can actually pick this up or not. I'm not sure. But that's basically what we're flying to. Now, this is a little bit ambitious because this doesn't have anything to do with our level off baked in. So you can see the profile here at the bottom. It just has us going straight down. I marked this level off point about 20 miles from kind of where we would begin our ILS approach, and that should let us slow down to whatever speed we need to here. So basically, this is 67 miles. What I'm gonna we're going to be descending here a little bit before that. So instead of maybe 10 miles from Daventry, we might go as far as 20. But 10 to 20 miles before the Daventry VOR, we're going to begin our descent down to 3,000 feet. We're going to level off, and there's no terrain or anything that we really have to worry about here. So we can hold 3,000 feet for as long as we need to. And then we're going to try and shoot the ILS into runway 11. But if not, we'll just do a straight-in visual approach. The first time I tried this, it was I tried to do it with live weather, and it was real soupy, and I couldn't do it. So we're going to try this out, and it shouldn't be too hard. We should have plenty of room to run. Now, if you look at here, this is going to be where we're operating out of mostly. Mildenhall doesn't have an ATIS, certainly not in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So we're going to be basically getting our weather information from Cambridge, and it shouldn't be too different. And it shouldn't be too different from Shannon because we're using static Microsoft Flight Simulator weather. We'll just check in on Cambridge and see what they're saying. And then if you look over here, we've got Mildenhall, which is where we'll be operating out of. And then up to our north, just a short hop up, is Lakenheath. That's one of the fighter bases for a lot of U.S. Air Force aircraft in Great Britain. During this time period, you're looking at maybe, if we're talking the 60s, F4, but it could also be earlier U.S. Cold War fighters here with the U.S. Air Force. So the big boys are going into Mildenhall, and then we may actually have to ferry a little bit up to Lakenheath too. I think that's a couple of the missions, is popping up to Lakenheath and then flying out somewhere else. For reference, for those of you not familiar with the UK, London is down here. It'll be to our southwest, basically. It's not terribly far. It's only 70 miles or so southwest of us. And then the North Sea is going to be up here on this way. So that's kind of what we're thinking for the rest of the flight. We're here, just crossing over Wales, and then we'll begin our descent probably once once we're 10 to 20 miles from Daventry. I have no concerns about us getting down, and if we get down early to 3,000 feet, there's nothing really to worry about in this area, so we'll be okay. So that's the battle plan. I will check in with you before we start the descent. Alright, welcome back. We're about 20 nautical miles out of Daventry, and I just want to go through one more time how we figure out when we should be coming down. Basically, we're going to descend at 1,000 feet per minute, and we're going to travel, as a general rule, 5 nautical miles per 1,000 feet. If we're descending at, the rate we say we are. Which really makes it very simple. We're at 14,000 feet, going down to 3,000 feet, which means we need to descend for 11,000 feet, and you're just going to multiply that by 5 nautical miles per 1,000 feet. Gives us 55 nautical miles away, and then we're going to add on that 20 miles that I was talking about to slow down. So it's 55 plus 20, around 75. And little nav map had it calculated as around 70, which is pretty close. They're taking us all the way to the ground instead of 3,000 feet at a point. So that's the only thing we're kind of reconciling here. We're at 14 miles away now, and we are going to go ahead and let me just check real quick. And we're going to go ahead and begin our descent at this point. So we're going to stay in cruise power for now. We're going to take off altitude hold, and we'll just begin our descent, pitching for about 1,000 feet per minute. We'll stay in cruise for a little bit, and then we'll go over to the descent checklist. There may be a specific threshold, but I don't know what that is. And while we're sitting here talking, get to do an engine check. We're looking okay. Looks like my oil temperatures are in the green. Oil pressure is looking good. And it's saying our oil temperatures are yellow. So, I'm not sure why that is, but it might be just a little bit high. As you can see, we're now 10 miles from Daventry. And in Nav 2, I just basically flipped them. I put the old VOR into it. Now, I'm going to try and tune in the Mildenhall information. Let's see what comes back. So we're looking for... We'll try 110.15. And then I've got another frequency we can try somewhere. And I'm just messing around with the little nav map in the background. Let's see if it gives me any information. I have seen somewhere else. Oh, I think it was Sky Vector. Had a frequency that worked. That's right, it was 115.9. So we can use 115.9 for, oddly enough, for distance, it just won't come in on the, it just won't come in on the needle, so it won't tell me where it is. I'm not sure if that's right or not. Maybe. Going over here, it'll tell me it's, yeah, it'll tell me it's 60 miles away. So we'll keep an eye on that. We're now 60 miles from Mildenhall. And we're descending a little bit less than 1,000 feet per minute, so I'll give it another knock. Knock at 2. As we descend over the English countryside. And we've now passed Daventry, so we need to go ahead and go over to our new course. So we're going to go into Gyropilot, and we're going to go 077. We're going to go onto the localizer. Looks like it is still close enough to pick it up. It should be a left turn, just a slight left turn. And then from here on out, we're really looking for the airport. We are now descending through, looks like 10,700. So I'm actually going to give it just another knock here. We'll go ahead and run the descent checklist now.
26 inches, please. Setting 26 inches.
Just so our speed doesn't get too terribly high.
26 inches set. Descent checklist, please. Altimeters and flight instruments cross-checked. Seatbelt signs on. On. Engine blower is low. Low. Descent checks are complete.
Alright, we'll just keep an eye on our altitude. Now down below 10,000. We're at 9,000, passing 600. And now we basically should be coming out to the left of the airfield. Now if we see a runway pointing towards us, that's going to be Lakenheath. That's not the one we want. And our final bearing should be 113. Now if we can get the ILS to work, that's great. If not, that's okay. Distance check, we're 47 miles away, and we are at 8,500. so we can gut check ourselves. We are at 8,000, we'll say 8,000 feet by the time we finish talking about this. So we got 5,000 feet to go, 5 nautical miles. That's 25 miles, so we're pretty much bang on for the airport. Now, we may need to expedite our slowing down a little bit. Well, but this isn't perfect. And we're basically shooting for just a little bit left of the airport, a little bit north of it. And I'm going to go ahead and program in the ILS here just in case it works. We're ready to use it. If not, that's okay. That's 7,000 feet. Just give it another knockdown. We'll keep going on down pretty fast. But the catch is we got to bleed it all off once we get down there. It's going to be 6,000 feet at 40 miles to go. And to slow down for 20 miles, and then be 10 miles from the airport, we'd like to be down at 3,000 at about 30 miles. We're not quite going to make that, but that would be optimal. Just have to keep an eye out for the field. It is not a small field. We're going to pass over RAF from water now. Interesting name for a body of water. And we're basically going to be our visual reference is going to be the town of Ely. I'm sure a British person could help me say that better, but ELY is the town's name. And we're going to be making a right turn, basically, on that, over that town, to the runway. So once we see if we see a sizable town, not the next one, which is Huntington, but the one after that, that'll be kind of our visual reference. And I'm talking, and we're at 4,000 feet, 32 miles, that's pretty good. So 1,000 feet to go, and we're going to start thinking about leveling off here. Here's 3,500. We'll go ahead and start bringing the nose back up. Bring it back up again. Again, for a nice level off, I'm really trying to be less than 500 feet per minute. But you don't want to go so far down that you're not descending at all. That's 3,100. That is 3,000 feet. So let the gyro pilot level us off. And we're now about 20 miles from where we need to be. So we'll be looking for 50 miles on here. That's when we'll be looking at our right window to see it. The glare is going to be tough. but we shouldn't be landing right into it, so that'll help. And the airfield, so we're passing over Huntington now. Airfield off to our left is Whiten, EGUY. Our speed's now down below 200, so we're looking okay there. So I guess I lied. The town below us is St. Ives. That's not our town either. I think you can just about make it out. Eh, maybe not. And just keep an eye on speed. We're down at like 185 now. So we are getting there. We're up to 40 miles. We're about 10 miles from the point where we're really thinking about turning in. Don't want to give any rudder trim. Other thing I'm going to do, go over to gyro pilot. We're going to hold straight for now. And we'll just see if we can't get the ILS to come in. Oh, it's rotating. Hey! We may be in luck. I believe we have some lights over there. That should be it. As long as that's not Lake and Heath. But if you can just make out those lights, I believe that's our target. And our HSI agrees with us there. Alright, so below us is the town of Eli. And And at this point, we're going to begin our left turn. I'm going to go ahead and take control. And we're going to run the in-range checks. Now, admittedly, that came up a little sooner than I thought it was going to.
Cooling turbine.
So we may be out of position.
Normal. Fuel booster pumps. On low. Fuel tank selectors. Mains on, crossfeed off. Hydraulic bypass valve. Down. No smoking signs. On. In-range checks complete.
Alright, so those are your in-range checks. And there is our runway. So we are not going to make that, obviously. But that is okay. We're going to just go ahead and loop back around. Now, I don't have the charts in front of me for this ILS either, if we even pick it up. We can go ahead and go over and see if it comes in, and it does. Surprise or surprise, we're pretty high. But that's actually really good to know for future use. We're going to be flying in and out of here quite a bit. We're going to call this ATC Vectors. We're going to basically fly on out, and then we're going to loop back in. And I'm just going to really try to hold altitude at this point. I'm not going to lose any more. And we should be able to maintain speed. The other thing we can do to make our lives easier is put in 115.9 in here so we can actually see how far away from the airport we are. We're about 7 miles now. And I think my plan is to go out until we're about 10 miles out and then pick it up. See the glide slope starting to come in, which means that we're pretty good. 8.5. We'll go ahead and begin our turn. Basically going to just try and make a nice turn, not lose any altitude. If anything, we'd like to be a little high through this maneuver. We'll probably spit out around 10 miles away. And you see we're going a little below the glide slope now. That makes sense. We're going farther, but staying the same altitude. Or trying to stay the same altitude. Nominally staying the same altitude. And I am just giving it a little bit of rudder here too. As we come around, and now we're just flying, we're really flying purely visually. The ILS isn't. It helps, but it's not what we're really using. We're gonna go ahead and run the full landing.
Setting flaps 20.
Let the guys figure it out. And let's see if we can't pick it up. Alright, so we've got it right over there.
Mistress Ridge, please. Auto Ridge.
And we don't want to gain a bunch of altitude now. We want to start losing it.
Mistress set. Gear up and down, please. Gear up and down.
Gear should help us bleed off some speed. We are high. And a little bit off to the left, so we'll come back here to the right.
Down and locked, 3 greens. Props. 2400 RPM. 2400 RPM set. Cow flaps. Plus 3 degrees. Cow flaps set. ADI. ADI off. ADI is off. Landing lights. Speed good. Extending lights. Lights extended and on. Copy. Call meet called. Set call.
So we've got a positive trend in the glide slope.
Complete.
And I'm just going to go ahead and right. We're already ahead, so I'm going to go to flaps 40. Help us reel that glide slope in a little bit more. And then all I'm really looking for is the needles to come in horizontally. Give it another knock of flaps and try to catch up. Back on the power just a touch. Try and keep losing altitude. And there's the runway there, so we'd expect the needles to come in. Yep, there it is. Ooh, and that external view to shutting all my power off isn't really great. But the glide slope's here, so glide slope's coming in, we're looking okay. I'm gonna go back to flaps 40. And there's the runway. Really good to know we have ILS, that's awesome. We may have to just do live weather. And if anything, we're now a little blip low, so I'm just trying to hold 70 or so BMEP. Now the thing I need to work on is judging when I'm about to touch down. Now the airplane I learned right before this is the CRJ, so I'm used to be kind of low, being low. I've got, is that 2 red, 2 white? Looks like it. Feels like a little bit of a crosswind. So anyway, yeah, so I'm used to the CRJ, which is pretty low. I mean, you rotate when you think you should for like an Airbus, and you're going to be floating for a while. So we're a little high, that's okay. So that's one thing I'm working on here. Try not to slam it into the ground. Of course, the other thing I flew today was the Harrier, so that's also not really helping me there. Alright, we're just a little bit off to the left. We're doing okay. Getting high. We're going to go flaps 50 now. And we got plenty of room. So no hurry. Just keep an eye on that vertical speed. And there's the threshold. Although, man, that button sometimes just, I don't know if it's just that my throttles aren't being seated in idle. But it got a little bit harder to handle as I added reverse thrust, which tells me that I was adding forward thrust instead. So, yeah, that button's finicky. So if you have any tips or tricks on how to get that that reverser to come in when you hit that button, I have it bound to water rudder. Is what they say, but it's like it works, but not after the first time I do it. So if I do it 2 times in a flight, it doesn't seem to want to go back into reverse thrust. But I can click it, so I don't know what's going on there. But that was my best touchdown yet, I gotta say. That was awesome. Except for the little reverser confusion, but we have plenty of long runway. So welcome to RAF Mildenhall. we're going to go ahead and taxi on over. I did make a mistake earlier. I was looking it up. RAF Mildenhall became a big MATS base as they were phasing out Burtonwood. So that was in 1959, I believe, was when a lot of the operations came over there. So DC-6 is not an unrealistic choice here. We are going to take the scenic route here a little bit. Around this apron to our parking area, which it is. You can see the planes over there. So welcome in. We were a little bit late on the descent, as it turned out. So I was right on at 15 nautical miles from Daventry, and we probably needed to be 20 or 25 out descending to get in. And then, yeah, the glare made us do a little loop. Our radar vectors, we'll say. But other than that, it was nice, and yeah, having ILS into here is going to be really nice. And I got that off a little nav map, so if you haven't tried Little Nav Map, I'd recommend it. It definitely took some fumbling for me to get used to, but we are here. And if anyone knows of any custom scenery for Mildenhall, let me know. That would be cool. Might get around to it myself one day. We're going to keep on keeping on. We'll taxi through the big red lines. And on over. Is this the turn I want? I think it is. Here we are. Welcome home to our main base for our special action group of the Military Air Transport Service. Now normally I would reverse in, but my reversers aren't working, and if anyone knows how to stop these guys from bouncing around, let me know, because I don't know what's going on there. Haven't troubleshot it enough. Alright, we're going to pull up on here. I'm going to give the reversers one more try, just see if it works. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Give it a bit of power. Hey, we got it. Okay. Lost it again. Oop, don't go forward into him. I don't think the ground crew is going to be terribly impressed with our reversing taxi, but that's okay. And we'll stop ourselves with a little bit of forward thrust. Parking brake on. Alright, so welcome to Mildenhall. This is where we're going to be operating out of for most of our flights. Some of them will pick up the airplane somewhere else, and some of them will end somewhere else. But, as one last final thing we're going to do today, thanks guys, we are going to figure out where we are going next. So let me go in and pick up the browser. Now, I already showed you what this one was earlier, so I'm not actually going to use it. Fun fact, if you hit the randomize button up here in the yellow, that's going to randomize everything you haven't checked the get mission button on. So we'll just randomize that, and it will give us a new mission. You do have to have macros enabled for the Excel sheet, so all it does is generate a random number over on the right somewhere. We'll check that out. All right. And our first mission, we're going into the belly of the beast. We are going to be delivering... We're going to be doing a late and evening tonight delivery of specialized intelligence equipment to U.S. forces in Berlin. Now again, Berlin's another one where we don't actually have the airports that they probably would have flown into. We're going to fly into the new Brandenburg airport, but don't tell anybody. So I look forward to seeing you guys on that one as we continue our DC-6 campaign. As always, thanks for watching VFR.